Okay, going to do some obvious ones, obviously just to sort of pull a lot of people in. But over the last 5 years since you released the Drill EP, you've done obviously the 2 albums now, you've got OK Computer. How would you sort of sum up that period, the last 5 years? Cool.
In some ways, it actually feels that we're only really starting in some ways. I know that sounds odd 5 years down the line, considering how many gigs we've done. But there's something about releasing this album which we feel. I think it's just a really good representation of us. I think it's the closest we've come to feeling confident about what we do. The way we approached it was to produce it on our own. And that gave us, the responsibility came full circle back onto us, everything. So, I think it's just been this time of, gradually building things up, and now it just feels that there's this awareness of us around in lots of places now. And we're just quite excited to see, how this album's actually received now.
Because there's been quite a gap between, obviously, Pablo rather than Ben's and
but the funny thing is, like, I think that looking at each stage, it's, what's an album supposed to do? An album's supposed to capture, it's like a musical photo of the band at a certain stage. And the thing about going back to the Drill EP and everything is that it has. And at times when we listened to Pablo Honey, when we in after when we recorded it, there were things that we weren't happy about. But the things that we weren't happy about really are our own playing, and we progressed as a band, through 12 years of playing, because we started this band in '85 at school. So if you learn your instruments as a trade, the only way you can actually get better is by going out and doing loads and loads and loads of gigs. And the Drill EP represents us at a certain time. Pablo Honey sounds, that Creeps recorded over 5 years ago, and it's kind of it's pretty naive, and it's still great, but but I think the great thing about anything that we've done, and also if you like all the B-sides, and what we're hoping in the future is to do a B-sides album, bring out a B-sides album.
Please.
Yeah, and we're really proud of those, because they're definitely, they fill in the chunks of time in between doing the bulk of the album. So you see the progression on that. So I think it's really interesting, and this album, like Phil says, represents us now. And we got to stage last October. This is like '96, and we did the first session for OK Computer, and we were playing like we've never played before, and it was really, really bizarre. Doing takes, going in and listening to it, and go, Jesus Christ, was that us? And it was really, really. I mean, it's an amazing feeling, because it's like 12 years you've been leading up to this, and floundering, and sometimes you have your on days, some days you have your off days before, but there was like a lot more consistency, and it wasn't kind of like an understanding like you do this, I'll do that kind of thing. It's much more because it's just literally through playing, having the luxury of being together as a band for 12 years, which I don't think can be underestimated. It's so important. We're very.
The marriage seems to have sort of, you've settled in the sense that you're perfectly in tune with what each of you are doing and how you do it, I'm sure.
Yeah, but like any good relationship, you don't take one another for granted.
No.
And that's, we've been through, and there'll be plenty more. We've been through emotional problems and infighting and stuff like that. But we've always kind of sorted it out, and it'll carry on. But there's always a belief, like, if there's a next big one, it won't be all over. There's kind of, but who knows? It could be like that. That's the other thing, is that you never know.
That's what keeps it exciting.
As I said, what was interesting is that, the rehearsals for OK Computer started last year already, in February.
Yeah.
And that's why such a long time? I know you're very sort of I wouldn't call it precious, but you're
yeah, but the songs have to evolve.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I've got like 20 cassettes from Walkman. I always took in a Walkman and recorded usually the bulk of a session. And you see how it's brilliant to listen to. Boring probably for anyone else, apart from a hardcore Radiohead fan. But it's really interesting, because you get a song like No Surprises, how it started, and you forget all those things as well. you know, and it's and I've got the same for the Bends as well. I've got the Bends sessions, how that started, and those songs, and it was, you know, it's really interesting because tempos change, lyrics change, and you know, 2 weeks later things change.
It's also a lot we had to learn as well last year. Really.
It's true.
As you say, you know, coming back to this whole thing, evolution of the song, but the way we, you know, coming back to this thing of producing it ourselves, there was so much to actually get our heads around on that. The fact that, you know, we actually had to say, okay, this is when this song's working, this is when we have to move on. And for us, I mean, there's always been a producer there to actually say that and actually usher us down certain routes. And, but to actually do that ourselves, I think, you know, each one of us was a little freaked out by it at points, having that kind of freedom. So, you know, for a year to actually learn all that, I think we've done pretty well, actually. And we did quite a bit of touring in the meantime.
Yes, which you did in between, which was interesting. I mean, was that just to try the songs out to an audience?
It was a bit of both. We had to go back to America. The record company wanted us to go back to America twice last year because the Benz was doing all right in America. Yeah. So we did our own tour, and then we supported Alanis for about 3 or 4 weeks. But the opportunity is there to play new songs. In the Alanis dates especially, we'd have 35, 40 minutes on stage. Half the set, you know, 5 out of the 9 songs or whatever were new songs. And it's great, so we went straight back into the studio and we were already we were playing really well.
Yeah. And your choice of venue for recording the album was also sort of quite interesting. I mean, from doing it at Hand Applause, which that was where you started it.
That's right.
And then you moved it over to Jane Seymour's house.
That's right.
Now that was interesting to me because, you know, why at that point did you move from your own place out?
The place that we've got is actually it's brilliant for rehearsing it, but the facilities are a little spartan, to say the least. So also we decided we wanted to actually go somewhere where we're actually completely immersed in it, so you know that we could cut ourselves off really, and just listen to ourselves.
The trouble is, Candid Applause wasn't residential, was it? So
no.
The sessions, it was the height of the summer.
Was it you're a farmer?
Yeah, it's the height of the summer. Euro 96 is on. There's a lot of, you know, beautiful summer evenings, and we hadn't been at home for a summer for ages, so by about 10 in the evening we were all kind of like, poor Nigel was kind of like, right guys, we're going to stay till 2, 3, and we were like, well, we were thinking of packing it up today, right?
So we've done 2 hours today.
But the interesting also thing about Candid Applause is that those sessions was that there was no stress whatsoever. It was incredibly easy, and it was very weird because that's the first time it'd been like that, and we didn't think that anything productive had come out of it. And it was only going on and doing, you know, more. When we got to Jane Seymour's, we did more versions of No Surprises, which we ended up using the first take of the first day in Candid Applause, our first day recording in our new studio environment. But we did like another 4 or 5 versions of No Surprises, and actually came back and saw what was great about that sound and that time. So. We actually did get, I mean, Subterranean was basically tracked there, Electioneering was basically tracked there.
And the
Tourist was basically tracked there. So 4 out of the 12 songs were in a month that we didn't think that working, where everyone was kind of like, mañana, you know, we were very...
Whenever, yeah. And if you sort of had to sort of take an average day, as I say, you took it quite easy, there wasn't any pressure to put something together really, you know, in a certain time frame. What was an average day like? I mean, in the studio for you?
There's no such thing as an average day in the studio, unfortunately. You know, you've got 5 different people, well, 6 including Nigel who engineered it, and you've got all those different moods firing off against each other. So how you can ever predict what is going to happen within a day, it's impossible. I mean, you get to this situation where you can get about 2 or 3 days and you think nothing's happening, and it can get a little depressing at points, and then suddenly everything will just click in on another day. And, you know, suddenly you get get rather cocky and think.
I like the
you're quite
analogy.
good.
I like the analogy of a Wild West town. You know, some days it's real quiet, nothing's going on, correct. And then on other days everyone's firing at one another. There's like sniper fire from windows. And then the other days, you know, there's a wedding. It's all good. So it's, as you said, it's like anything can happen.
Yeah.
It's true. The only regular thing is grub, is feed times.
Yeah. Which was amazing.
Yeah.
You look forward to that, did you?
Yes, I think we all put about an extra stone on.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's the heavyweight version of Radiohead, and that's not talking in terms of our material.
And as I say, talking about Nigel Godrich, I mean, you've used him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's engineered for you in the past, in the most
In the
recent
Benz
stuff. Yeah.
and
Then he started to produce.
Yeah.
Why him again?
Well, because first of all, he's an excellent engineer. He's a brilliant engineer. He likes to work quickly as we do. And also, I mean, I think probably the main thing is probably personality as well, in the sense that he's 27, 28, our age or whatever, and it's really nice. It's a great feeling to have people who are your own age. There are 6 of you in the studio, and you're actually doing it. I mean, it was great doing an album with John, and actually John Leckie actually sowed the seeds of this. He said you can do what you want in the studio. You know, he demystified the whole process. So, and when he went away for 3 days to do some mixing during the Benz, we did some recording with Nige, and it was like it just felt so good, you know. It was a bit more hit and miss than John in those days, but by the time we were doing OK Computer, we'd done some stuff with Nige already. It felt really right. He's a real fan of the band, and we're a real fan of his, and
So you've sort of grown with the band, really?
Yeah.
Where your sound is
and
going.
the psychology of it is very important as well. It's very easy to get freaked out by like some kind of you know, when John Leckie was the first 4 or 5 weeks in RAC were a nightmare, and that wasn't because of him, that was because of us, because there was John Leckie, this, you know, this big producer, you know, huge number of albums that we loved that he'd done, and it's you know, you can't help but think all the time, like, God, he engineered the first George Harrison My Sweet Lord session. Here I am fucking up my guitar part. You know, what must he? There's all that kind of stuff, all that history, and of course that's not what John's thinking, because you know producers don't do that.
Yeah.
But so Nige is just, you know, he's excellent as well. He's a great engineer.
So it was interesting. I mean, you worked with Paul Calderi as well. I mean, on
And Sean Slade, yeah.
Which was also an interesting one. I mean, because at that point you were, to all intents and purposes, a young band, a new band, and you were working with an American producer, which, as I say, wasn't a typical thing at that point. I think to do for a lot of British.
Yeah, I think at the time, I mean, if you look at the bands that we were listening to, it was, you know, bands like Sonic Youth and Pixies and Dinosaur Jr. And so, I mean, they were very much at the centre of that whole scene. So for us, it seemed like a fairly natural choice at the time. Again, we were quite in awe of them as well, and their pedigree.
True. I mean, at that early stage as well. And with you touring, I mean, you did the American dates with Alanis Morissette, then you also did some dates in Holland, in Belgium. It seems that your following there seems to be obviously pretty big as well. But was it actually a beneficial thing to tour during recording the album?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's sort of taking you away from that environment that you're sort of getting into, and then you're productive, and then all of a sudden you're away again. Was that good or bad?
It was actually really good for us. I mean, we needed to. I think when we work best is when we're actually stimulated and challenged, and there's a challenge for being out on the road and then suddenly coming back in and recording, which is what we did. Came back straight from an Alanis tour, and within 4 days we were in the studio. And in those first 3 days in the studio, against all the odds, we actually did so much stuff. I mean, we basically did the tracking for Climbing Up the Walls, Let Down, Karma Police. We did a lot in those, and these are like live takes as well. You know, what you hear on Climbing Up the Walls, most of it is, apart from the strings, most of it is, in fact all of it is tracked live. I mean, it's everyone in a room playing together. So it's really good for us to be able, we like that idea of being in the studio for a week and then, hey, let's go out and do a couple of shows
and see how people
respond to the gig. I mean, it's a bit of a nightmare logistically for our crew and stuff like that, because they're kind of like stood down for a week and then they're back on active duty. But it's really good for us. It really works for us. And I think it would be great to come to the, you get to the stage where I think we would really respond to it well, that you forget all this nonsense about album tour, that you could just tour an album and I'm sounding a bit like the Grateful Dead.
Carry on, Jerry. Yes.
But it would be because we get so much, a lot of the creative stuff is actually done on the road. Tom does a lot of his writing on the road as well.
Yeah. It's funny because when you're actually on the road, that's the time when you get more time to yourself.
Yeah.
And
you can actually concentrate on music.
Writing songs, sorting out your parts. Because when you're at home, there are just 1,001 other things that will crowd in on you.
The bills,
yeah. It's also a really good way of actually seeing what songs do work and how they work. I mean, take Paranoid Android for instance. I mean, it's fairly lengthy in its current state. But when we were touring it was about 10 minutes long, wasn't it?
Yeah, 10 minutes long.
Well, live it would work, wouldn't it? I mean,
It won't be 10 minutes tonight.
Because I mean that for a first single is, I mean, it's a brilliant song. I mean, me in my biased way. But for a first single, I mean, come on, I mean, you battled with radio.
But let's see, 20 years ago, no one would have thought anything of it, would they? It's just, it's whether you're a music fan or whether you're a fan. I mean, I was talking to a radio station yesterday in Catalonia, and they were saying, they were on the phone, they're going, this Paranoid Android song is very, very long song. And I you have to turn around and said, well, it depends whether you're a music fan or whether you cater for your your advertisers, whether you do a radio station to get adverts and make money, or whether you actually, obviously there's a fine line and there are commercial implications, but there's still room for a 6.5 minute single.
Will radio, well, will K-Rock turn around and go, oh great, we'll stick this on our playlist?
Probably not.
This is a problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, as you say, for the music fan, it's perfection, because that is the way the song should be.
But you see, what we're going to do is, anyway, in America, we're not releasing it to radio. It's going, because we've done a video, it's going exclusive to MTV, because there's no point going to, Radio 1 in England, they're playing it, they're hammering it to death. But K-Rock or whatever, radio stations wouldn't pick up. If it becomes like from MTV, then of course they'll play it.
And they would,
But it's no.
Were you challenging the system in a way? Maybe not obviously, but you're not.
I think we had to work with the songs that were on the album, really.
That's right. And it's the first song we played to our friends.
So it's it's, as I said, the reason why we played that song first of all was the fact that it seemed to actually draw people into the album as a whole. It seemed, because this album's coming from a lot of diverse areas really, and that's for one song of the album that actually encapsulates all of that, I think. So.
And then the interesting thing is now that you're going to have 12 videos that you're going to make for this as well.
It's true.
Why? Not that it's a bad thing, but was that sort of...
Do you mind? I'm going to think mention just about all this. Can I mic you?
Sure, do. Do. What was whose idea was it to do the 12 videos? Now, is that sort of an accompaniment to the album?
It was our video commissioner, Delia at Parlophone. She there was this whole thing with we decided, like, on the bends to start taking videos a little bit more seriously and not necessarily butt in with our own ideas, go with directors and let them be creative and try and do something different, get away from the performance video, get away from this. So with the sort of I don't know, it got to a stage was how do you beat a video like Street Script? How do you beat a video like Just or fake plastic trees. You know, it's very difficult. So, and Dilly said, well, let's turn it around. Let's just do a video for each song, keep them relatively low budget, and try and do it different. Use animators, and Paranoid Android is animated video with us barely in it. You know, one shot in a barn. There's a sort of figure called Robin.
Yeah.
Have you seen Robin?
I haven't. I must admit, I've read a lot about it because that's obviously, I mean, the naming of the album as well. I mean, and sort of the Paranoid Android, and to me the link with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe or type of thing. I mean, is there a theme, an obvious theme with the album? I mean, is that what are you pushing for that or?
No, that makes it sound a bit like a concept album.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Well, this is, you know.
I think no. If a concept ever came into it, it would have been at the end when we were just trying to pull in like all these different elements of the album to actually make it let it make sense as you know, as a body of work. But there wasn't something that we thought, okay, yes, let's really examine this whole idea of technology and music and technology and how it relates to us today. I mean, that really didn't come into it. I think, you know, of course, I mean, lyrically with Tom, I mean, all the lyrics were written within a certain time frame. So, I mean, there are going to be links. I mean, you know, there are going to be crossover in his interests there. But to actually sit down and make a concept album would just be so incredibly tedious and just really limiting from a recording point of view.
And an obvious one, the title of the album.
OK Computer. I think it kind of what's really interesting about it is I think it's a working title. It was the name of a song that was not a very good song, and that was never recorded, and it kind of lasted. There's that whole thing, you know, it can be taken anyway. There's a duality about it. It can be a positive force and a negative force. OK Computer, you know, it's let's do this. I've harnessed the technology, or it's the downside of it. It's the HAL like 2001 kind of computers running the ship, you know. So but it's lots of things. You know, we recorded this album basically with gear we'd bought, created a mobile setup, and we basically just, you know, were surrounded by this technology. We didn't have a fucking clue how a lot of it worked, and part of the process was, you know, going in there, being nervous, surrounded by all these toys, and kind of like, well, how does that, pulling knobs, and how does that work? And it's very liberating experience. It's kind of the whole thing, like when kids are supposed to be much better with computers than adults, because they just dive headfirst in and they don't care, and adults are like, oh, can't do that, might break it, sort of thing. So there was a bit of that, and a few things got broken, but it was fine.
And then
we'd have to buy different bits because you hadn't got the right bit and all that.
So you're techno junkies then? You pick out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love the idea of technology and stuff. And you look through these magazines and they're great. And you go, oh, I want one of those. And you almost always, when you get one of these things, say it can do this, this, and this. It always lets you down. You always feel like it's not as good as it could be because your brain kind of takes it on and reads this thing and goes, this is going to be problem solving, the biggest thing that you've had or needed, and it's kind of a bit like that. So it's like working with computers. It's actually
computer games as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like you went back to something like Space Invaders, which at the time just thought, wow,
that was
the graphics on this are amazing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just, I mean, of course there's like a real fashion again for it now, but in terms graphically speaking, it just looks really limited. So, you know, it's just such a quick turnover in technology.
Because I mean, obviously that's going to affect your recording because you've got all this technology coming in. But I mean, a lot of the stuff that you intended to use, you never landed up using and landed up just putting it through, you know, through your traditional pedals and things like that.
It's because we get bored very, very, very easily, and we want things instantly. One of the things, it didn't work out like that, but one of the things we want to do is work quickly. And if you've got a computer and you've got to set up click tracks, you've got to set up sound and stuff, it takes a long time. And we did it with Airbag, and that was good. But after 2 days of you and Tom doing that, and it was a great thing that you did. I'm not doing that. I'm not dissing it at all because it had to be done.
Just carry on. No, carry on.
But it gets, you know, if we'd
That's what
done
you
that,
said at the time.
if we'd done that with every single track, 24 days, and that's what it would, would have taken. Because we're not fast workers. It would have been so. Whereas climbing up the walls, you do that within 5 minutes or whatever. You get a sound going, and you're all playing, and it's instant. You've got something you can work to, and something you can be really motivated and get a vibe off, really.
And what did you retain from the first 2 albums and landed up incorporating on the new album, and what was new, things that maybe you hadn't done before? Did you sort of go back and have a look at the last 2 albums and say, okay, well,
No.
we liked that, we didn't like that,
No.
let's take,
I think when we started off, and it's not as if we took the Radiohead blueprint and ripped it up and said let's recreate ourselves. I mean, there's a real sense of a development there. You can actually see the thread from, say, like Drill EP straight up to OK Computer, and I think you can still tell it's the same band there. And take a song like Lucky. I mean, I think that's a very good kind of midpoint song between the Bends and OK Computer.
Lucky was the Watershed song, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of Tom's writing and when
and
we
that
did
doesn't
it.
appear on the album.
It is on the album.
Is it on
Yeah.
the album? Oh,
Yeah.
Great.
Track 11.
Oh, okay.
That's right. But I mean, in terms of recording, that felt midway
Yes,
between the 2 albums
yeah.
anyway. But that still sounds very close to the Bends. But I mean, the way we approached that was the first thing that we'd actually produce ourselves, and in a way that gave us like the direction for OK Computer, I think.
Are you sort of aware of your sound, that there is a Radiohead sound?
Well, I think we're aware of there definitely was a Radiohead sound on the first 2 albums, and it was something to get away from. One of the things that I think about OK Computer that a lot of us liked in the band was that we felt that a lot of it didn't sound like Radiohead. But then, you can't. But then, as a band, you can't really be objective about these things, and of course, you don't want to sound like a different band each album, and it's not possible to anyway. I mean, unless you were a completely proficient musician and Tom was able to sing in different styles all the time, and it's not, it's, I think what's interesting about bands is the progression or the development, or see how album changes from album to album.
And where would you say you are now as far as that progression is? I mean, is there sort of, are you at sort of a pinnacle point, or are you still sort of taking on board and playing with things?
We're still taking on board. I mean, I think that after we came out of doing OK Computer, once we finished the album, we felt like we were just drained of any more ideas, any new ideas. It's like, we've done all we possibly could on this album. It was like we've sweated over it. We were just, completely emotionally and musically drained, and that's why going out onto the road, going out to tour and just playing, trying to relearn these songs and play these songs again, and just playing as a band. Maybe in hindsight we'll be able to see where we are, but at the moment it's very difficult.
It was very shaky again at the moment, because we haven't played live since last August.
Yes.
So, you get to the end of an album and it all sounds quite polished and all quite in control, and then suddenly you get it back into the live situation. You think, oh my God. Bluffers.
And I mean, the choice to produce yourselves, I mean, as you said, it is difficult to be objective as a band. I mean, bands obviously do it, but has it been a good thing to produce yourselves?
It was the natural thing to do. It was with someone like Nigel.
Yes.
It was because it's another discipline. It was learning. The great thing about having a producer, John Leckie and the way that John Leckie was and the way that Sean Slade and Paul Kuldery were, they weren't arrangers. We'd have done all the arranging, we'd done all the music. What they were is they were timekeepers, they were kind of disciplinarians.
Which you need.
Which you need, you really do, and we had to learn all of that. So it was definitely the right thing. It was the first time we could actually probably take on board and do that. And it was all right doing it for two or 3 days, but whole chunks of time.
I just wanted to introduce you to Colin.
Hello, Colin. Just whether you wanted like me to join in, or
Would you?
yeah, well, just didn't want to.
Just for the end of it.
Yeah, if you would.
Didn't want to interrupt.
Just another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Wrap it down.
Just wrap it up.
Didn't want to interrupt. Is that right with you?
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, time. I could
You
say-
just won the foot spa, haven't you? Well done.
Yeah, I've won a foot spa.
National radio in the UK.
That's right. I heard about that. Because I must admit your internet following is rather large. I recently joined the group just to see what people were asking, and to say the interest among. I mean, you did the interview with Irish Radio a couple of weeks ago.
I don't know. I can't
You
remember.
did.
Johnny.
No, Johnny did.
Johnny
that's right.
did.
Johnny did. Sorry. And to say, because you seem to. I mean, coming back to Barcelona, why did you choose to start everything in Barcelona? Do 2 shows, then have the break. Why? Yeah. For goodness sake.
I think we're yeah. Have a look around you.
Yes.
Not a difficult one.
No, but besides the obvious.
I think we knew that we'd actually be quite nervous about this week. It's the first time that people will have heard me playing this new material live, well, in its form as it is now. And so I think we wanted to come somewhere that we could relax as much as possible. Barcelona's always seemed to have that effect on us. And also, hopefully, everybody who's coming to see us would relax here as well. which is quite important.
Okay, and you were said to be given free rein with this album by EMI. Does that sort of mean that the first 2 you had someone sort of knocking on the door? Sort of?
We were left alone. I think our A&R man came down once or twice. He was on his way down to see his family, so he's passing through. So he popped in.
Yeah.
Our managers, we'd ask them for advice halfway through, and they'd say, look, it's your record. You finish it, and then or you finish tracking. When you think you finished tracking, then come to us and see. So we were left entirely to our own devices, and yes, and having to plan things. No one's saying at Christmas time. By Christmas time, we had to focus on 14 tracks. So we didn't have anyone putting any pressure saying when's. They just said it would be if you want a release before the summer, you have to have it mixed and finished by mid-March. And we're like, it's time to get
Our skates on.
get cracking.
Yeah. And
It's Christmas.
I mean, EMI also seems to be pretty optimistic about the album.
Yeah, and even despite the fact they've heard it, I know. But sorry.
Why do you think that is? Because it seems almost that this is the. I mean, okay, you bar all the comparisons that Q have made and everything else, but this seems to be the big commercial album. Would you sort of agree or not?
Well, I think a lot of people are saying once they've heard the record, that it's gone from commercial suicide, which we didn't really respond very well to, because we didn't think it was that extreme.
Yeah.
To well, it takes a couple of listens. It does take a couple of listens. If you do anything different, it's going to take.
An album's good.
What?
Can you pay for an album to get into that full time?
Yeah. But you anything that you listen to, anything that's different, it takes you a couple of listens to get into.
It's almost a sign to say that to me says an album has got longevity.
Absolutely.
It's got
Well,
all the
hopefully
elements.
so.
Because if you just fall into it, then it's. Within a week you've lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have to sum the album up as a whole.
As a whole.
Finished.
Finished.
God. Just that one word, really.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you one last favour, if I may. I'm going to ask you to do 2 IDs for me. One for my show and then one for the sort of national broadcaster, which is 5FM. So you can play with it as you will.
You've got the best radio voice.
So, what's your full name? Jason
Curtis.
Jason
Yeah.
Curtis on 5FM?
No, I'm not on 5FM.
Okay.
You can do the one just 5FM straight. And
Okay.
then I do a show, as I say, called The Cutting Edge. Very cliched,
Okay.
but that's the name of the show, all right? So just deal with it. Okay, so when you're ready.
Do you want to, shall I just say one?
You can do it all together. In unison.
Hello, this is Ed from Radiohead.
This is Phil.
And this is Colin.
And you're listening to Jason Curtis on The Cutting Edge.
Thank you. And then we can just do the one for 5FM.
Hi, this is Phil from Radiohead.
And this is Colin from Radiohead.
And this is Ed from Radiohead.
And this is Radiohead on 5FM.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Appreciate your time. I hope it's...
Right, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Was that not too painful?
That was great.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
It's cool.